once again a very big welcome to all of our attendees this morning. You'll notice that the last talk for this month, we are going to be focusing on housekeeping, particularly in vehicles, and we will touch on sanitizing or disinfecting your vehicle due to the coronavirus or COVID-19, as it is still currently affecting all of us in and around South Africa. In fact, worldwide, we're still having this pandemic rage on. Just seems like it's getting worse and worse. Every single day we are hearing of new cases, and that is mainly because housekeeping is not taken very seriously outside of the actual home. So all of us are getting our houses ready, getting ourselves ready, but what are we allowing to grow in our vehicles? So we will touch a little bit on this today. But let us start off with what is housekeeping. Specifically, when it comes to vehicles, we are thinking of obviously cleaning, making sure it's washed and nice and shiny. But effective housekeeping can help control or eliminate workplace hazards. Now, how is that possible? We'll take a look at 4 examples of where housekeeping for vehicles can assist us in preventing hazards from taking place. Then housekeeping is not just cleanliness. It includes keeping the work area neat and orderly, and also maintaining any areas, floors, free of slip and trip hazards. Now, how do we apply this into the vehicles that we are driving? And then also housekeeping also means the removing of waste materials, paper, cardboard, whatever it is that is waste materials, and other fire hazards from the working area. Again, how do we apply this to vehicles? Well, when we talk about eliminating a workplace hazard, it means that there is an item that is potentially dangerous or distracting us in that area, that if it is not packed away, cleaned, or perhaps even monitored, it could become a hazard that creates a risk for ourselves as well as our employees. Now, as we mentioned, it's not just housekeeping or cleanliness, rather. It means being neat and orderly. So everything has a place and everything should be in its place. But why is this so important? The removing of waste, no doubt, that is one of the things that most often gets in the way. And this is because while we are working, we generate waste around us, and then we push ourselves to finish the job. And the last thing that's left over, housekeeping, gets left behind. We think, well, the housekeeping affects me. Particularly when it comes to vehicles, we put it in the vehicle and we say, well, we'll sort it out later. Throw it into the back of the bucky, throw it on top of the truck, put it in your boot, and you can sort it out later. Later just seems to never come for many. And this type of cleanliness or non-cleanliness leads to potential hazards in the future. So let us take a look at one of or the 4 things that we are going to be discussing today. First of all, we're going to look at inertia. Now, if you don't know what inertia is, in layman's terms, and you can take a look at the picture on the left-hand side, the vehicle or the truck that is driving has brakes, but the huge stone that was in the back of the truck does not. In other words, inertia means although your vehicle will come to a sudden stop, should you need to put on the emergency brake, the things in and around the vehicle, including yourself, will not brake as quickly as the vehicle. And thus that forward movement or forward motion of yourself or things around you will propel itself until it hits something in order to stop it. Now, if 2 things are colliding, 2 vehicles are colliding, both of them on the inside have the possibility of the inertia wreaking havoc on not only the person, but also the vehicle, as you can see in this picture. And then bacteria, a dirty and unclean vehicle can be a breeding ground for different types of bacteria. And in this case, COVID-19 can be spread due to cross-contamination. Then we look at poor visibility or no visibility. Now, if you cannot see it, how will you be able to react? And this is the case with not putting on your lights, or perhaps not cleaning the vehicle so that you cannot see the lights of another person. And then the last thing that it affects poor housekeeping, especially when it comes to vehicles, is our reputation. Will the client want you back on site once they have seen how clean you are or how not clean you are? And this is because many clients are requesting you to come out to perform work that is relatively dirty. You are going into sewers, you are fixing waste pipes, you're going into toilets, and yet it is not a dirty job. In fact, what you are trying to achieve is a clean and hygienic environment for the client in order to discard of their waste. But what type of reputation are we sowing for ourselves when we arrive and our vehicles are not clean? Our clothes, our shoes, or even our work area that we leave is not clean. So housekeeping permeates our entire way of life. But what we want to do specifically is take a look at vehicles and how housekeeping can affect that area. Now, as we mentioned, inertia. When you are in the vehicle and the car moves forward, the driver, as shown in the pictures above, the crash test dummy, moves forward at the same velocity as the car. In other words, if you're driving 120, your body is essentially doing 120 kilometers an hour in that vehicle. Now, when the driver obviously hits the brakes, the car stops. And if the stop is very sudden and the driver, for instance, is not wearing a seatbelt, the driver will continue moving at the same velocity as it was before the stop. What will stop the driver? In this case, if you're not wearing a seatbelt or if the airbags don't fully operate, then the windshield will apply an unbalanced force that will stop the driver's forward motion. Now you will see very clearly from this picture that the crash test dummy does not come out feeling okay after this inertia. When the vehicle stops, that person essentially will continue moving until it is stopped by another object. We are hoping that it is a seatbelt and an airbag. If we do not wear our seatbelt, well, obviously you are not going to be stopped. If the airbag is not in good condition or not regularly maintained, and in this case we are talking about taking it in if your airbag light comes on, making sure your vehicle is clean so that it is always operational. Or if things are laying on the dashboard, this could also be put in front of the view of the airbag, and it could damage the airbag or prevent the airbag from being fully operational. Now, what about a person in the back seat? You might think to yourself, yes, the driver, I'm wearing a seatbelt and I have an airbag. Well, what about the person that is traveling with you? Many are being carted on the back of bakkies. Do they have seats with safety belts and airbags? What about the child that you drive to school that is next to you? What about something as simple as the bottles or other things that are laying on the floor or around in the vehicle? Remember, the same force of velocity or the same speed that is being exerted on the vehicle is being exerted on everything in the vehicle as well. And now we can just think back to that, the truck with a huge stone that is being carried. The truck can stop. However, that stone just continues moving forward. Now, obviously, we're not carrying big rocks of granite in our car, but what are we carrying? Tools, we're carrying equipment, or possibly, very importantly, people. And if we are they protected if a sudden stop needs to happen? What is going to be the effect and impact on those people? Not just hitting the car in front of you, hitting the windshield, hitting the back seat, but the tools and equipment that are coming from behind that could potentially also cause an impact. So the next time you put a tool or a piece of equipment back in the bakkie and you don't strap it in, well, just think of this force of velocity that could exert itself on that tool or piece of equipment when you do need to stop. Unfortunately, with accidents, we are never given a warning. We are never told in the next 5 minutes you will be involved in an accident. Now, that creates an unknown area of risk for ourselves. So if we do not know it, rather be prepared as if we do. When we spoke about bacteria or a breeding ground for bacteria, specifically when it talks about COVID-19, if our vehicles are not cleaned and maintained and sanitized often, there is the possibility for cross-contamination. Well, let us take a look at the inside of a vehicle. With many vehicles, and the problem with vehicles is that they contain so many different types or kinds of surfaces, from leather to metal to rubber and plastic, and viruses can spread while sharing an airspace with an infected person. So if you're sitting in a vehicle and somebody else gets into the vehicle that is positive for the COVID-19 virus, they could spread it throughout the entire atmosphere and airspace. This will then land on surfaces that the person can touch. And if you touch one place and move it to the next, you can then cross-contaminate from one area to another. Well, you might say to yourself, everyone is checked and screened before they get into my vehicle. Well, do you check the underside of their shoes? Have you checked whether they've washed their hands? Well, because the COVID-19 virus can be cross-contaminated from one surface to the next, if it is on the soles of your shoes, it will then move to the carpets in your vehicle. If it was on your hands and you are not washing your hands with clean running water and proper soap, or alternatively using hand sanitizer, you could cross-contaminate from a surface you touched earlier to a surface in the vehicle. And because these different types of interiors, different surfaces hold the bacteria for different time frames, you could cross-contaminate from your vehicle into your office space, from your office space into your home. And that is why it is so important when we look at our vehicles to keep them hygienically clean and apply your housekeeping principles to your vehicle, yourself, your shoes, and anything that you're going to put into the vehicle as well. Now, there's been a load of studies, and obviously we've been speaking about SARS-CoV-2 or the coronavirus, COVID-19 in particular, in these past few months. But there are different and other types of bacteria that can also grow in a car if housekeeping is not applied. And one of those viruses is E. coli. Now, that's also a very dangerous virus. This type of pathogen can be inhaled, ingested, and what it's going to do is just cause havoc in your internal systems, and that can also then be responsible for a large number of diseases later on. Another study that we took a look at, which was related to the coronavirus or the SARS-CoV-2, found that viruses can survive on inanimate surfaces like metal, glass, plastic for up to 9 days in some cases. So yes, cross-contamination can become a very big issue. And we've realized this after auditing a number of clients out in the area where when we're on site, they've done their deep clean, everything is hygienically clean, it's nice, it's sterilized. A week later, they have somebody that is tested positive for COVID-19. Why does this happen? Well, although our offices are clean, what are we doing about cross-contamination of the person from home to the vehicle, from the vehicle into our offices? And this is where that weak link in the chain is going to bring down the office environment, where we will need to shut down our services and send our staff home to be quarantined until we can make sure that it is a safe environment once again. Now, how do you prevent this? How do you stop this from happening? What is the responsibility for you, not only as an employer, but also as an employee? Well, it's to ensure good housekeeping. Keep yourself clean, keep your vehicles clean, and it doesn't just mean washing it. It means hygienically clean, as well as everything that needs to be in a specific place should be packed away in that place. Now, the third thing about dirty vehicles or vehicles that do not have housekeeping policies or procedures, means that there's a very big possibility that you are not going to have proper visibility. Now, there's two things that Arrive Alive spoke about in their 2020 magazine, and I just wanted to mention these two things. There's a law requiring mandatory daytime running lights. In other words, during the day, we should actually have our lights on, because this can reduce the incidence of daytime crashes of four-wheeled vehicles by 10 to 15%. So here we are talking about obviously work vehicles, work buckies, and trucks in particular. They should actually have their lights on even during the day. And this basically helped 10 to 15% of accidents during the day from happening. Now, that's all good and well if your windscreen is also clean. And in the background of the picture, you can see a windscreen that is dirty. If you've ever done it before and you've had some dust on there and you've tried to clean it with your windscreen wipers, you'll realize how little visibility you have while you are trying to clean that windscreen. And I've done this before driving on the highway. I've tried to clean it. I'm doing 120, and all of a sudden, I have zero visibility for the next few seconds. It's those seconds that could cost us our life. So from now on, what I've tried to do is obviously just ensure that it's cleaned before I'm going on a trip. And if I realize that I'm going into an area where there is a possibility that I'm going to have a dirty windscreen, I just pull over to the side of the road, clean the windscreen with the windscreen wipers, and then continue on the road instead of taking those few seconds of non-visibility into my hands. Now, one of the smartest pieces of legislation in recent years has been the requirement to add a reflective strip at the back of trucks and trailers. And this is proof that little expense can save a lot. Again, it is a brilliant idea, a brilliant piece of legislation that should be taking place in South Africa. We have seen the failure of this in many instances. However, if we do have it, but your windscreen is dirty or you have poor visibility from the back window or the side windows or even your front windshield, you will not be able to see these items. Even if it is partly distracted or partly covered over and you cannot see clearly right around your vehicle, there is the possibility of a collision in this case. So visibility is extremely important, and housekeeping will go a long way in preventing that. And then lastly, we spoke about reputation. Now, reputation in any industry is extremely important. People want to take us on our word. They want to believe that what we are telling them is the truth. Now, when we get to a site, first impressions last. And although we should not judge a person by their appearance, and we've heard it many, many times, we do not want to judge a book by its cover. It is very difficult, though, when first impressions last. And that is because when you arrive on site and your vehicle is dirty, that impression is an automatic response from the human brain. They will later on find out that not only are you a nice person and do a good, honest day's work, and that you do actually leave the home in a clean standing, the reputation initially is going to be damaged, and you will have to work on repairing it from the start. Whereas if you arrive and your vehicle is clean and you are well maintained as well as clean, then the initial response of the person would automatically be a good reputation. So maybe you can ask yourself, who would you like to deal with? Someone who does clean work, someone who's clean themselves, or would you like to work with someone who is not clean and does not clean up after they are done? Well, if your answer to this question is someone who is clean and does clean work, well then what type of person are you being for that client that you are going to go and see? So please take a look at your vehicles, take a look at the cleanliness and the housekeeping that goes into our vehicles. If we do not have policies and procedures in place for these things, even our private vehicles, we need to relook at it and see what we can do to ensure that not only are we clean and preventing the spread of COVID-19 from our houses to our vehicles, to shopping centers, as well as our offices. But we are also maintaining a good high standard of housekeeping. Now, if you want some more information on this, particularly on the high or frequently touched areas in vehicles that we are pointing out to say these are the areas that in particularly people touch the most, we have a whole list of them, and also a little safe operating procedure or safe working procedure on how to clean and sanitize your vehicles. And then a little bit of information on what you should do to keep your vehicles in good condition while on the roads. If you'd like that information, drop me a mail there at the top right-hand corner, chris@ohss.co.za, and we can give you some more information. Or even on the cross-contamination between yourself, your vehicles, your private home, and the offices where you're going. How are we really going to prevent the spread of this type of bacteria? Then coming up in July, we are looking next week at the Toolbox Talk on audits. We are going to look at 3 different types of audits in this Toolbox Talk. First of all, the audit of the actual installations that we are performing as plumbers in the industry, and then the audit of a safety file, being an internal one. How are you doing your internal audits, and are you checking whether it is effective? And then the third audit we are looking at is the audit that is coming from your client. Why should you expect it? What should you expect? And what should you do once you've received that audit? Then throughout the month of July, we are looking again at hazardous substances. In this instance, we're going to look at disinfectant spray and how dangerous this can be. We've taken a look at 3 different types of disinfectant sprays over the past few weeks. We've looked at the MSDSs, and we've just got some information for you on how to protect yourself from becoming affected by these sprays or hazardous substances, as we call them. Then we look at power tools and dealing with dust for the last Toolbox Talk. So once again, a very big thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. A huge thank you to IOPSA for everything that they're doing for the industry. Again, to SIOSH as well as PRB for their input of CPD credits. And then to all of you out there who are actually joining us for our Toolbox Talks. It wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you very much. So that's all from my side. We look forward to hearing from all of you during the week.